All right. Good afternoon, everyone. How are we? This is kind of an impromptu one. I wasn't planning to do this today because we've got a video coming out at 5 p.m. this evening. And the video this evening kind of ties into what we're going to talk about here in terms of there's already a pantomime at play. Labour won last week. We voted for change and it's already begun. It's already begun. The positioning, the framing, everything has begun. And in order to kind of illustrate this, we're going to go down memory lane. So I'm going to go back to 2010 when George Osborne, at the time, became Chancellor for the Tories that started their 14-year stint. And I just want you to pay attention to the um, the similarities in language, the similarities in how things are positioned then and certainly now, because I think once you recognize this pattern, you'll be very, very clear on what's coming. So, look, I'm not aligning myself with any political party. I didn't vote for either of them. I voted Green Party because I just like the ideas they had with uh, taxing the wealthy. And if I'm completely honest, I felt like I wanted to give two fingers up to both Labour and Tories because they're both as bad as each other and they're just rubbish. It's the same old stuff that we're going through. So is it Rachel Reeves? Rachel Reeves, yes. Rachel Reeves is our first female Chancellor of the Exchequer. Um, I don't know her background specifically. I was thinking about maybe spending a bit of time going through her background here, but I thought that may just take away from the crux of what we're going to delve into this afternoon. And I think primarily what I want to communicate here is I've been saying on Instagram for 3 weeks heading into the election, and certainly on YouTube here, that all of the political parties were lying in their manifestos when they said that there will be no tax increases. When you listen to the Institute of Fiscal Studies, who are the premier leading research body when it comes to economic policies, they're there to hold governments and business political figures accountable for their decisions on business, the economy, and on households, on people, on ordinary people. They've been saying that all of their plans are not costed. And we've heard so many of them say our plans are fully costed. The IFS begs to differ. And so, yesterday, if you're paying attention, Rachel Reeves gave her first major speech. And how she started this speech is what is the precursor for what is going to be broken promises coming. All right. We'll jump into what she said shortly. But first and foremost, let me just take you back to 2010 and let's have a listen to George Osborne and the language he used to phrase what needed to happen back then. And if you remember, what he introduced was massive austerity, spending cuts. So, according to the IFS, spending cuts are very much still on the table, right? They are not being ruled out in any way, shape, or form. So, they think we need a combination of spending cuts, we need to borrow more money, and we also need to raise taxes. Taxes specifically are the ones that the parties have all pledged to not doing. Certainly when it comes to income tax and national insurance contributions, which is 42% of the government's tax revenue. But let's just watch this clip. Let me know what you think.
Osborne. Broken Britain, Dr. Osborne will see you now. The Shadow Chancellor offered an uncomfortable prescription for what the Tories see as the country's many ills. It was a big moment, and a pause at the start suggested the burden of expectation hangs heavy on him at times.
We know what the task is. Britain is coming out of the deepest recession since the war.
The key to the Conservative position is that they say the truth about the economy is worse than the government lets on.
And this is something that was spoken about by the IFS in this general election cycle. We weren't being told the true depth of the problems our economy faces, and we were not debating what needs to happen to get ourselves out of it. Instead, we led with all of these headline, I guess, I won't say superficial because they are meaningful to people, but we ran with this headline agenda, this narrative around taxes and immigration and so on and so forth.
Much worse.
Labour created this mess, and we Conservatives
Labour created this mess. Remember that phrase. You'll hear it again in a minute.
are going to have to sort it out. We are sinking in a sea of debt.
George Osborne had harsh words for the government's announcement last night of a limited public sector pay freeze.
For the Chancellor of the Exchequer, to sneak out a public sector pay policy in the middle of the Conservative Party conference, when he didn't have the guts to announce it to the Labour Party conference, tells you that these Labour politicians are better at writing books about courage than displaying it.
We expected some bitter pills. There was virtually a bottleful, most notably a complete freeze in pay for nearly all public sector workers.
I say to every public sector worker, it is the best way to protect your job during this difficult time. We are all in this together.
George Osborne knew after this he'd be accused of talking down the country by Labour, and so he endeavoured to lift the gloom a little.
We changed the Conservative Party to be ready for this moment, so that when the moment came, people would see us fit to govern. People would trust us with public services. People would join us to fix the broken society, and people would turn to us to lead the economy out of crisis.
Now, it is so striking the similarities that you're seeing, because even when you go back to his pulpit right here, right, where was it? Look at their slogan back in 2010, ready for change. You know, we've been speaking about change and change and change. It feels like for decades upon decades. But what change do we ever get to see? Now, let's bring it back to present day, right? So the main full commitment has been that there will be no tax rises on working people across income tax, across national insurance contributions, VAT as well, but they've mentioned and they did put in the manifesto that they will be removing the exemption for VAT on private school fees, right? Apart from that, they've been adamant that everything else is costed. Now, there was an interview that Rachel Reeves did with Sky News, and this is about a month ago, right? And I won't play the full clip. I'll play you the clip where what's just happened was just signposted and signaled by the reporter who was asking her the questions on this is the expectation of what we think you're going to do. Now, I'm going to play you the clip of her speech yesterday, but take a look at this and you tell me or not whether this reporter was bang on with what he said. And when I play you the clip, you'll be able to see whether or not you agree with what he said. So here we go.
Everybody's expecting you to get into power if you win the election, declare that there's a much bigger black hole than you're expected because of the Tory mess, and then suddenly will have plans to put up other taxes other than the ones that you've specifically ruled out. Can you rule out anything around VAT? Are there other tax rises that you think might have to run? Your plans might change.
There are no further increases in tax that we are planning or that we need to fill any black holes.
So are you ruling that out for the whole Parliament?
Well, we've already ruled out increases in income tax, national insurance and corporation tax. That's further.
But not the others. That's the point. You sound like you're not going to raise. So you're not going. So there could be raises in other taxes other than those three.
I'm not going to write a budget here, but I've been very clear about the tax changes that are needed to fund the plans that we've put forward. And voters can be certain, unlike with the Conservatives, who are putting out £64 billion worth of unfunded tax cuts, that there's nothing in my plans that's not fully costed and fully funded. And that is the difference now between the Labour Party that will put stability first and a Conservative Party that is desperately throwing around huge cheques without any idea how they're going to pay for them.
All right, so let's get rid of this. Just remember what the reporter said she will do. Right, so let's go on to her speech from yesterday, and just see if you can identify, just spot the difference or the similarity.
We're developing an app with a freelancer on Fiverr. There's something about the way that I give feedback that...
Let me address the inheritance. I have repeatedly warned that whoever won the general election would inherit the worst set of circumstances since the Second World War. What I have seen in the past 72 hours has only confirmed that. Our economy has been held back by decisions deferred and decisions ducked. Political
So remember, Labour created this back in 2010 by George Osborne as he took office as Chancellor of the Exchequer, pretty much saying exactly the same thing. Responsibilities have been dodged, party was put ahead of country, just
self-interest put
similarities.
ahead of the national interest. A government that put party first and country second. We face the legacy of 14 years of chaos and economic irresponsibility. That is why over the weekend, I instructed Treasury officials to provide an assessment of the state of our spending inheritance so that I can understand the full scale of the challenge. And I will present this to Parliament before the summer recess. This will be separate from a budget that will be held later this year. And I will confirm the date of that budget alongside a forecast from the Office for Budget Responsibility in due course.
Now, look, I'm going to end it there. You can go and watch this full clip. It is on Sky News. She goes on to talk about how they're going to remove regulations that have prevented homes from being built. She's also removed something around a ban on onshore wind farms or something like that. The point that I want to get to here is, and please make no mistake of this, this is going to be the precursor for tax increases. There is no way that a government who generates 42% of its income revenue, like its tax revenue from income insurance and national insurance, can commit to no increases to income insurance and national insurance and still deliver on the promises that they are making. And they think that they're going to be able to do that by simply removing the VAT threshold for private school fees. It's impossible. The black hole is too large. It's like me saying, okay, I really, really need to earn more money. I've got a business here. 42% of my business is generated from these group of people. I'm going to keep the cost to these people down and then maybe have a look at where else I can generate income from, knowing that those two sectors, that customer base, is my largest source of income. It would make more sense from a business point of view to have a small increment for that pool of people to generate more money than everything else I have going on in the government. I've done a number of videos about this position around where the government gets its money from. Income tax, national insurance contributions, and VAT, those three combined, I think, are about 54%. So over half of your income revenue, your tax revenue, you're saying you're not going to touch. It is simply unsustainable. Now, what I expect to happen is this, and I could be wrong. I could be absolutely wrong. What I think will happen is she's had a look at the books. She can see how bad it is. What will happen is there'll probably be an autumn budget. And that's where we're going to hear the bad news that, things were way worse than we ever thought they were going to be, or what was expected. And therefore, we have to U-turn on this, and this. We already know they need to seek further efficiency. So spending cuts are going to happen anyway. It has to. There's too much wastage within the government. But you cannot think that you can go to the money market, borrow money, and not raise taxes simultaneously. Look at the Liz Truss debacle. The whole reason why the pound suffered so much was because she wanted to raise all of this money and not raise taxes. How is this going to be any different? We've got this massive hole with the NHS. We need more teachers. We need more police officers. Public services are suffering. You want to create Great British Energy. Where's the money for that going to come from? So you need investment. So how is it all going to, and they could say, we're going to try and make it attractive for foreign investment. Okay, great. But how are you going to do that? So look, this is the precursor to what I think will be broken promises around taxes. And I'm just doing this because I don't want anyone to feel disillusioned or disappointed when we get down to the nitty-gritty and lo and behold, this is what happens. Because we've been here before, and it just feels like it doesn't matter how far down the road, this is almost the same as what happened in 2010. although it's different circumstances. We had the recession back then, right? Financial crash, global markets crashed, but there was still irresponsible government spending. You fast forward 14 years, it's still exactly the same thing because our economy is essentially broken. It's just broken. We are operating on debt, and you cannot operate on debt and have a situation where you have a huge wealth inequality that suffocates the middle class and the lower class. You don't have social mobility, and at the same time, you have policies that favor corporations and multi-billionaires and millionaires. Like, how is this ever going to be sustainable? We need radical change, and these guys, these politicians, are not up for the task. They're just not. They're just not. And even my video this evening, I talk about why it may feel like the system is stacked against you. Give you reasons why. Inequality is a huge reason why. And government policies have facilitated that now for the past, 2-3 decades, even more so in the last decade or so. Never have we seen the wealth divide widen as quickly as it has in the last 10 years, whether that be in the UK or in America. So it's simply not sustainable anymore. And I don't feel as though if you're watching this, either with me live right now or on a replay, that you should start to get comfortable. What I say on this channel is this: please take charge of your own personal finances, control your controllables, because guess what? Taxes are going up. They are going to go up, and it's going to hurt. And energy prices are going to go up at the end of the year as well. It's going to hurt. Are you going to feel squeezed? Yes, you are. They froze in the tax threshold, which means that even if you're not paying more in your basic rate, higher rate, or additional rate taxpayer, and let's keep it with the basic rate taxpayer because that's the majority of people. Yeah, you're not going to pay more than your 20%, but if you get pay rises, you're going to be pulled into a higher tax bracket. That's how it works. It's a stealth indirect tax, and yes, that was brought in by the Tories, right? But Labour could say, actually, you know what? We're not going to tax the working man. Let's unfreeze those thresholds. As much as I didn't like a lot of the stuff that Reform was coming out with, I did like the idea of raising the personal allowance to £20,000 because that would help a lot of people, a lot of households, puts more money in the pocket. Hopefully that money then circulates in the economy, gives us a bit of an economic boost. This is where we are. Income tax thresholds frozen, which means that you're going to see more people pulled into higher tax brackets. A couple of weeks ago, I spoke about the fact that on the state pension spectrum alone, by 2028, when this tax threshold ends, the triple lock is going to pull most people on state pension into a tax-paying position. And I'm simply just reporting the numbers as they are. Now, if you've got state pension, you've got other income as well, there's a bigger impact there. I'm just trying to report this stuff so that people are aware of what's basically coming. I don't have the answers to any of this because I'm not a politician. I'm not in government. I don't have any desire to be. But I do think that if we know that these things are likely to happen, at least we can actually take charge and figure out what we need to do, what our controllables are. And that's the biggest gift that we have, the ability to control our controllables. So when it comes to personal finances, I'm sorry, but it is going to be about making sure that you know how to fight your own demons. I want to buy this. I want to buy this. I want making financial decisions that actually make sense and not allowing yourself to be caught up in your own emotions or your own desires of impulsive spending, so on and so forth. This is fundamental stuff. It's not rocket science, but it's something that we are not taught, trained, or even given any guidance on how to deal with. And so when we find ourselves in situations like this, it feels like we're almost incapable of setting ourselves in a position that allows us to be financially comfortable. And unfortunately, it's because a lot of us, most of the UK carries debt, bad debt, toxic debt. I'm talking about this in my book club right now. We've got another cohort going for 6 weeks. Last week, we were talking about debt, the different types of debts, and really being able to control what you have going in to your account and what you have coming out to ensure that you don't have a huge reliance on debt. And I think a lot of people forget the fundamental principle. The best way to manage debt, to avoid debt, is to have really strong financial management measures. That's why I did the video last week or 2 weeks ago with the free budgeting kit that I've been using for the past 10 years that has transformed my own personal finances. This is important stuff. And it's going to be even more important in the coming few months and years because things are going to get tight. You are going to feel as though you're being squeezed. And to a certain extent, you're going to feel as though you're powerless. And so financial management, controlling your controllables is really important. Understanding how you control your own kind of like spending emotions. I've got all kinds of spending habits assessments on my website that people can take to really understand what is your trigger. How do you interface with your money personally? This is all stuff that is generally speaking boring, but it is fundamentally important to understand how you can be as efficient with your money as possible, be less reliant on debt, and therefore less of a slave to your 9 to 5. I know people who wake up every freaking morning, go to a 9 to 5 job, and they absolutely hate it. And they cannot leave because they don't have an emergency fund to allow them to tell their boss to fuck off because they don't like it. And they feel that they are slaves to their job because guess what? They've got to pay rent. They've got to pay the mortgage. They've got to pay the car finance. They've got overdrafts, credit card, loans that they need to pay. It doesn't have to be this way. And we are not taught this in school. But this is stuff that I've been talking about on this channel now for 4 years. Now, more than ever, is this going to be important? The other thing that I want to leave you with is this. Sometimes it's just so much easier to focus on how you can maximize your income than budget from an ever diminishing pot. And so, yes, you need financial management and you need to be responsible with your own finances 100%. But if you can earn more money, you give yourself more of a chance, more headspace to be able to make better financial decisions, to achieve life goals, to really work towards things that are going to make you feel as though you're not just in that rat race of 9 to 5 on that constant wheel and you just feel crap for it. It's really, really important, guys. What the government is going to do, we cannot control. They're going to do what they're going to do. And I've said this a number of times on the channel in the past week. Labour, now that they're in power, they're going to do what they're going to do. They'll probably satisfy some other agendas with their mates who are going to be building homes. I mean, 1.5 million homes they're going to build, and none of them are going to be council homes. So this is going to be built by the likes of David Wilson Homes, Taylor Wimpey, Persimmons, all of these private builders, Barrett's, right? All of these builders that potentially you could argue at some point may have some connection to government. I mean, how is it that we can have a country where there is a house shortage and you're not going to plan on building any council homes that will be affordable? Tell me how that makes sense. Like, it doesn't. It just doesn't. So I'll continue to say this because I think it's really, really important. Please control your controllables. There's lots of stuff that I offer. My book club, the cohort, we're in the second cohort for private individuals. I've got a corporate cohort at some point, but the book club is 6 weeks intensive. We go through all the practical elements in the book, really get into the nitty gritty. Everyone gets a one-on-one session with me. We keep it to a cohort of 20 or so. The next one will probably start sometime in September. So watch out for that. But things like your spending habits assessment, if you really want to understand what makes me spend money in the way that I do, what are my triggers, it's worthwhile taking the spending habits assessment. Though some of them are linked in the description down below. I'm just going to jump straight into the comments very quickly because I know there's quite a few of you here. I just want to say really thank you to Introvert Maxine. Thank you much. Thanks for that, mate. It's not a lot, but it does absolutely help the channel. So thank you very much for that super chat. Let's have a look and see what we're doing in the comment section, what we're saying. So Knowledge is saying here, I guess taxes and more taxes coming. People in my local area are queuing up for food banks. It's very sad to see it. It's true. We're not a third world economy. We're supposed to be, a Western world economy, first world economy. It's crazy. It's absolutely pathetic. Economy is based on business and commerce. Both parties destroy backbone of consumer spending by high taxes and businesses by leaving the EU. I would agree with that as well, because no one's really talking about the impact of Brexit. And I know Keir Starmer is on a mission to try and strengthen the relationship with the EU. But how successful he's going to be with that, because I just don't know. Because at the end of the day, if you want something, it's a partnership. It's a give and take. So if they give something, what do we have to give in exchange? And if it is going to be free movement, people don't want that because that's what they voted for us to leave, right? When it came to Brexit. So it's going to be very, very interesting. It's going to be challenging as well. The red sun rising. Christ, what a disaster. I get my leave to remain just in time for the same people that sold us to China in 97 to take power. I mean, it's a long history. One thing that I don't like about politics is that they all point fingers at each other. And let's make no mistake, you've all been in power before. But regardless of what term you're in there for, what did you actually solve? Not a lot. We find ourselves in the same shit we were in from 14 years ago, really, just different circumstances. It's pretty mad. So knowledge seeker saying here, if UK taxes are extremely high as World War II, what would they do if we have war? In normal conditions, they pushed UK to World War II levels. So I did a section of a video. I did a video about this a few weeks ago. We don't actually have the highest taxes in Europe. You know, Norway pays less taxes than we are. So if you look at the countries we would want to be compared to, Norway pays less tax than every other company. But if you think about France, Germany, Denmark, Switzerland, they all pay higher taxes than we do. And that's one of the things that the IFS was talking about, saying that, you know, in order for us to have the facilities, the public services that we need, it is essentially a necessity that we have to increase public spending, and therefore taxes to be able to fund that public spending to match the level of services they have in Europe. And they've been open and quite transparent in saying this. And people think we pay high taxes, but we're not in compared to the companies we would want to be compared to in Europe. We're not paying anywhere near as much. It's a video that was on the channel. See if I can actually find it. I'll share you which one to go watch, because it's worthwhile watching when you have a look at the because I show on a geographical map the countries that are there. I think it was, let me have a look. I think it was this video right here. Don't be fooled, higher taxes, taxes are going up. It's that video right there. It's definitely worthwhile watching. But yeah, our taxes are going to go up because we are not paying as much as some other companies we need. Billy's just saying here, we need home building now. Yes, I mean, they said they're going to, hit the ground running, 1.5 million homes. I'm just concerned that none of them are going to be, council homes. They're all going to be built by developers, private developers. I'm just going to have a look through the comments. VAT was increased temporarily, and now more increased. Both parties that have no innovation, vision, and growth for industry, for business. Putting taxes on people isn't the solution. I mean, I know that they talked about having a roadmap for business. So in terms of a package for business, in terms of the taxes, so on and so forth, I don't think we're going to see that until probably the next budget, which will probably be in the autumn. But like I said, I think personally that budget is going to have a ton of surprises in it, and some things will be very unpalatable. Yes, if you haven't already, please do smash the like button. If you do that, it just means that other people who may need to see what we're talking about here, it will get recommended by the YouTube algorithm to those people. The session that I did on Friday, which kind of had a look at what the Labour manifesto effectively means for our money, that video is done very, very well. So I want to see if we can actually achieve kind of the same with this one. I think so far it's got 5,500 views, so 5,500 people have watched that, and that is down to the like count. The like count is really important. So if you've not smashed the like button, please do so. That will be amazing. Thank you. I agree with this comment here. We need wealth tax instead of income tax or national insurance tax. I completely agree. That's why I voted for the Greens, because at least they had that plan, and I wanted to send a signal to say that people. We need this. We absolutely need this. I've not been able to get Gary Stevens onto the channel. I mean, he's been on my channel a couple of times, and yeah, I've not been in touch with him recently, but it will be good to have his thoughts on that. But I am following his content. Someone just saying here, yes, we need radical change, and both Tory and Labour are weak. Yes, they are indeed. Someone's saying it closed the loopholes on tax on business earnings and within the UK. I would agree with that as well. The black tax is going up too. My mum been asked for a lot more. Fixed council tax bans. So this is another thing that they could potentially do. And again, it's going to be indirect tax. You know, income tax and national insurance contributions aren't the only taxes that are available out there. They are the biggest portion of the tax revenue, but there are so many other kinds of taxes: business VAT, business rates, council tax is one of them. You know, they could give the green light for councils to raise council tax beyond their limits. That will be a tax rise on people. Just it's indirect because it's coming from your local council, but greenlit by the government. So, you know, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. There are quite a few comments on here. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get through all of them here, but I appreciate every single one of you. Someone's just asking here, what's the best thing to do in this situation? Work more, uh, move country, create your own business, save money. It's all quite a lottery. I mean, this is a really good question. Uh, I think you've got to do what you feel is going to be right for you. But I'm a firm believer of the two things that I've just mentioned on this live. Control your controllables, so make sure that you're really, really tight on your personal finances, because the less pressure you can feel there, it would allow you to do other things. So, for example, if you want to create a side hustle or you want to begin something that could potentially turn into a business, it has to start somewhere. You can only do that with confidence and with the best chance of success if you have your finances in place. And I don't know, this is something that I haven't spoken about on the channel, and I might do because I think that maybe it's topical now. You know, I started this in 2020. I had financial resources around me to allow me to give it a year's runway. So like a year, if it doesn't work, I'll reassess my circumstances and see what happens there. And I've been really, really vocal over the past week or so. You know, to date, and this is from 2021 to today, I've done about £424,000 in income. Now, if someone told me in 2020 that I would be able to generate that kind of money from a business that is predominantly based on YouTube, I would have laughed you out of a room, because I'd been like, get out of here. But it is true. But you have to have the right things in place to be able to do that. And when I say the right things in place, I mean just from, can you support yourself from a financial point of view? And I've not really spoken about my process of how that happened. Don't get me wrong, it's freaking hard work. So creating a business, yes, start your own side hustle. Make sure you've got, you know, the setup to allow you to do that, to put your best foot forward. Know that it's going to be difficult. Know that it's going to be hard. Know that it's going to take a lot of perseverance, particularly if you're doing this in conjunction with your 9 to 5. So you're doing two things at the same time. I jumped right in at the deep end, you know, right in at the deep end. I didn't I walked away from my job, from my career, pretty much to do this. And I had a year's runway, and I had to pay down a load of debt to be able to get myself into a really comfortable position where I could give this a year. But, you know, literally, I went from zero in 2020 to 2021 doing 123,000. And so the choices are abundant. I just want to tell people, like, you know, sometimes it is better to focus on earning more money. It's not going to happen overnight, but what you're doing is you're planting seeds that could reap great rewards for the future. And this is the way I see this. You know, this channel and what I've done here has taken me to have a best-selling book, to do national TV, to be invited to Number 10 to sit down with Jeremy Hunt. It's taken me a lot of places that are pretty amazing. And I didn't know that any of this was going to happen, but perseverance and hard work is really what matters. So in answer to your question, if these are your options, so, you know, work more, move country, create your own business, if these are your options, evaluate each of them and figure out which one in the long term is going to make you feel the happiest and make you feel fulfilled. For me, it was doing something that I enjoy, talking about things that I learned during my 15-year career in financial services and just trying to have conversations with people about it. And this is where it's got me. I don't know where it's going to take me in the future. I have no idea, but I feel more fulfilled in doing this than I ever have in any corporate job. And yes, I work very, very long hours. I don't work any less hours than I did when I was in corporate world. When I was in Canary Wharf, I was doing, you know, probably 14-hour days. I'm still doing that right here, but I'm doing it for myself. And there's a big difference in that. And I'm helping people, or at least I think and hope that I'm helping people. So you've got to weigh up the options accordingly. and just believe in yourself. That's going to be my biggest message. Believe in yourself, give yourself credit, because you just never know where things will take you. Okay, I'm just looking at, there are quite a lot of comments. I'm not going to get to them all. I apologize, everyone, but thank you so much for watching this. I hope you found it useful in some way, shape, or form. I will keep tabs on this to see where things go and provide some commentary. I know people often get funny with the fact that this is a political topic, and this isn't to say that this is a political channel. It's not. We talk about money and finances, invest in personal finance, but politics and political policy, government policy, has an impact on our spending. And so whilst I feel it's relevant to cover it, I'll cover it, but with the lens of how do we put things in place so that from a financial point of view, we are in a better place. And that's where it comes from. But thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And again, please don't forget to smash the like button. If you've not already subscribed, consider subscribing as well. Cheers.